Alright, welcome back to the MF Customs YouTube channel. We are going to go over how to configure the 86 to 93 Mustang inputs and outputs. If you have one of our adapters, we're going to make this fairly simple. If you don't, not a big deal. You'll still be able to follow along and be able to use most of the stuff that we are going to use tonight. So let's get started. Alright, so I have up here the Terminator X software. And if you have one of our adapters, you will be using this. Got a little green screen. That's the inputs. So this is how we have them laid out on our board. Input 1 is for the AC kick. Input 2 is tied to the EGR wire, which could then be used for a secondary wideband. And then input 3 is our flex fuel sensor connector, and input 4 is not used. Then along with that, you can then look at the outputs. Output 1 is not used by default. Output 2 is the electric fan. 3 would be the wide open throttle AC shutdown, and then the idle air control valve solenoid. Alright, so let's get started on configuring this, and we're just going to kind of work through this, and I'm going to demonstrate on how easily you can do this. Okay, so we're going to open up our tune. I'm going to use a demo tune of ours. Let's go into here, MF Customs Demo, the 86 to 93. Okay, so for the AC kick, the one thing you'll need to change right off the bat is we'll go to System Parameters and Inputs and Outputs. This needs to be a 12 volt. Ford is a 12 volt system if you're using the Ford factory wiring. If you're using an aftermarket wiring plug and play setup with your Holley wiring and not using our kit, you'll want to reference what they are going to trigger with. But if you're using our kit or just reuse a lot of the Ford wiring, it'll be 12 volt. The next thing we'll want to do is underneath the basic I/O, we will want to turn off fan 1 and fan 2. We do not want to use the default built-in. Reason being is, say you drove the car to the fueling station, your temperature is in between 195 and 180 or above, and you go to start back up, your fan's going to be automatically on with key on, which would put a big load on the electrical system, and it's not really ideal. So what we'll do is we'll manually configure those within the Holley software, but we got a trick to that to make it simple. Okay. Now that we've done that, the way we're going to do this to make things simpler is you can go to our website, www.mfcustoms.com, go to our adapters page, and pick the adapter that you have. Obviously this is specifically for the 86 to 93, so we'll go into there. If you click on specs, you will see we have the schematics. And we also have out here a Holley individual ACF. I'm going to show you guys how this works. So go ahead and download it. Okay. And what you'll want to do is minimize everything. I right click on the start button, this is Windows 10, and click run. Now I will put this in the description below of the video so you can copy and paste it. But typically you just go user profile, documents, and Holley. I have multiple versions of the Holley software. I hope everybody's on V2, but I still have some customers on V1. So we'll go into V2. In individual configuration libraries where you want to go, and I/O. Now I already have the files here, but what you'll do is you'll open up another window. Most likely it saved your files to the downloads folder, and you'll just want to drag and drop it. In my case, I'm just going to go ahead and say replace, let copy over, and then we can close these out. So what does this do for us? So if you go in the inputs and outputs today, and if you don't have this button here, that's okay, but if you do, make sure you go into it and see if you have any inputs or outputs configured. If you don't have any configured, that's great. But if you do, this will overwrite it. Now, if you don't have that button, if you don't have this input output button, don't panic. We're actually going to add it. So I'm going to remove it just so you can see that now it's gone. We're going to go Toolbox, Add Individual Config File. Here's that IO folder. Let's go into there, and let's bring in this 86 to 93. So okay, it's imported it, and now we have this button back. So if we go back into inputs and outputs, now you'll see we automatically already have the flex fuel and the second wideband configured in here, along with our fan. So now, how do we utilize that? Well, what we do is we go into our pin map right here, and here they are available. So if you're looking to the side here where we have the inputs and outputs across the top, and you're using, again, our adapter, you can drag the flex fuel down to input 3, the second wideband down to input 2. You can click on your outputs here, and you can get rid of these because these are the factory default settings with Holley. And then you can drag down the fan down to output 2 and click done. And that is how you configure those. Now, why do we want to do the fan the way we do? Well, right here you can see that we have it set up with 2 input triggers. You know, we want the coolant to be above 208 and below 204 to turn it back off. These are the factory settings on the SN95. These are default settings I just put in. You can adjust these to whatever you want. And I also have the RPM that it must be above 600. It means the car is already started and running. Now, if you have AC, you could do an input trigger, which we left out on purpose, and you can bring down the AC kick, and you would change this to enable. But you would want to make sure this is then set to OR. So what will happen is if the AC kick, if you've turned your AC on, it will then tell the fan to just turn on. Or, if you don't have the AC on, these conditions must be met down below. Now, other than that, that's really it. Now, if we go look at our pin map again, you know, we have everything drug in, but we're missing something. We're missing the idle air control. Why are we missing that? Well, if you're using a bass tune from Holley and you haven't gotten one yet from a tuner, you need to go into your idle ICF. You need to change this advanced idle control down to a 5-liter Ford, and you need to tell it it's a pulse width modulation, or PWM. I like to set these at 315. We are doing a lot of testing right now and have found that 60, 90, and even 124, I think it is, have worked really well, and I think those are the factory ones. We are going to do more testing with factory ECUs of different years and makes, and get that data and finally nail this down to exactly what it should be per year. But for now, 315 works. A lot of people are using it with great success. And then for the input output, it's already set for PWM. So if we go back to our pin map, go to view outputs, and there is now our IAC. Drag it down to pin output 4, B3, done. And all you do now is just send this up to your ECU, and you have configured your inputs and outputs. Now, for the folks that are watching this that is not using our adapter, you can still use this, because as you noticed, everything had to be drugged to the pins that you need it to. So this can be versatile. For folks that are using this and they're like, well, hey, I'm not really using the flex fuel. You don't need to delete it. All you just need to do is just disable it. You just uncheck it. The same with the fan. Like if you're only using just some of this stuff, you don't actually have to remove the config from it. You can just have it here in case you ever add it, and they'll just sit here disabled, or you can pull them out. Your choice. Most of our tunes, we just go ahead and drop this stuff in and let the user or owner make the decision if they want to keep the stuff or keep the configs or not. Well, If you have any questions, reach out to us. We'll be reading the comments below. We are going to be doing one on how to also scale your sensors for the low dollar motorsport stuff. So if you have any questions, reach out to us through our page. We'll be watching the comments down below. And again, we appreciate your time. Thank you.